morning and welcome to Market Café with me Ankur Mishra and Kanishka Sarkar, and it's a special day today. It's a celebration of conviction, clarity and compounding only on ET Now's 16th anniversary. As we mark over a decade and a half of tracking India's rise, we bring you market makers who have not just seen cycles but shaped them. Sandeep Tandon, Madhusudan Kela, Prashant Jain, Ramdev Agarwal, Mark Mobius and Radhika Gupta and many more will decode the road ahead. From the next multi-bragger themes to where smart money is flowing, with insights of small caps, macros and the big structural shift in India's investing landscape. This is your ultimate destination for wealth creation wisdom. So stay tuned as the voices that move the market will speak only on ET Now on today's special day for you viewers. But let's get started the show with US market check. Kanishka, US markets were closed yesterday, but how are futures trading?
That's right, Ankur. First of all, many congratulations to you, the entire ET Now team, and also our viewers who have kept us going. Now let's get started with how the US markets are looking. Well, like you said, trading was closed in the US yesterday for the Juneteenth holiday. Now stock futures, they are lower ahead of today's session. Now investors are monitoring the conflict in the Middle East between Iran and Israel and also potential direct US involvement there. Now the futures tied to Dow Jones Industrial Average, they slipped 154 points. The Nasdaq composite, the futures related to Nasdaq composite, they also ticked down about 0.2%, where so did the S&P 500 futures. Now investors, as I said, remain jittery as the conflict between Israel and Iran is yet to cool off. Now, US President Donald Trump, he's weighing direct US involvement with a strike on Tehran, with the White House on Thursday saying that he will make a final decision within the next 2 weeks. Now, for the week, if you look at the moves in all three major averages, now the S&P 500, that's up marginally with the gains of 0.07%, whereas the 30 stock Dow, that has lost 0.06%, whereas the Nasdaq, that has advanced about 1% for the week. But Ankur, how are things looking on the crude front? Still volatile?
Yes, it's a volatile situation because, as you mentioned, the situation in US something which everybody is watching for, whether or not there is going to be an attack in Iran. So WTI futures were actually trading around $76, and if you talk about Brent crude, that was hovering around $76.30. But more importantly, if you talk on a weekly basis, this will be around a third weekly gain that has come after OPEC meeting which happened, and they decided to increase the output, and even in the next meeting the expectation is that there will be an increase in the output.
That's right. Now let's get to discussing all these global stories in greater detail. Now tensions in West Asia, they are reaching a boiling point with fears of a full-blown Iran and Israel war gripping the globe. Now, Donald Trump says that he will decide within next 2 weeks on possible military strikes on Iran. However, he's remained ambiguous, telling reporters, and I quote, "I may do it, I may not do it," end quote. Now, Russia has warned that such a move could trigger a terrible spiral of escalation, with the world said to be millimeters from nuclear disaster. Now, the UK has begun withdrawing diplomatic families from Tel Aviv, while Germany, China and Russia call for calm. As the deadly strikes continue, the next few days may prove decisive. Now, let's go across and listen in to the White House press secretary on Trump's comments on the conflict intervention.
I know there has been a lot of speculation amongst all of you in the media regarding the president's decision-making and whether or not the United States will be directly involved. In light of that news, I have a message directly from the president, and I quote, "Based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, I will make my decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks." That's a quote directly from the president for all of you today.
Donald Trump is once again taking aim at Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, this time calling him a real dummy. After the central bank held interest rates steady for the fourth straight meeting. In a late-night post on Truth Social, Trump dubbed Powell too late and accused him of costing the US hundreds of billions of dollars by not slashing the rates. Trump claims the Fed should be 2.5 points lower to ease pressure from what he calls Biden's short-term debt.
That's right. Now let's keep it with the central bank space but shift focus to England. Now the Bank of England has held interest rates steady at 4.25% in a 6:3 vote, signaling a cautious stance amid stubborn inflation and global uncertainty. While three members backed a rate cut, the BOE warned of two-sided risks to inflation, pointing to rising energy costs and possible trade shocks from the US tariffs. Now, with UK growth still weak and the labour market softening, the central bank said that inflation may hover near the current levels this year before easing.
Shifting focus to Japan, Japan's core inflation has hit 3.7% in May. That's the highest level since January 2023, which will intensify pressure on Bank of Japan to hike interest rates. Remember, in the last meeting, it was status quo from Bank of Japan, and this is the 38th straight month where inflation has overshot Bank of Japan's 2% target. Governor has signaled rate hikes ahead, but only with clearer signs that inflation is ticking.
That's right. Now moving on to a very special story. Now the world has changed a lot in the last 16 years. On the 16th anniversary of ET Now, we track changes in the world leaders from 2009 to the years after that. It was a time when the leaders were globalists, unlike today, who could have anticipated back then that MAGA would be a major political movement and global village would be a term much despised. Let's take a look at the story.
16 years ago, the world was led by globalists. Today, it's run by strong men. From Trump 2.0 to Modi 3.0, from Putin's battlefield to Xi's boardroom, leadership has become personal, polarizing, and profoundly strategic. From the corridors of the White House to the alleys of Davos, from Raisina Hill to Red Square, the faces at the top did not just change, they challenged the world order. This is the era of power transitions and a world that keeps asking who leads next. From hope to hardliners. In the last 16 years, leadership has shifted like tectonic plates. 16 years of partnerships, pivot points, and power moves. 2009 to 2014 power map. From Obama's diplomacy to Angela Merkel's steadiness, from Xi's ambition to Putin's force, things were changing. Enter the disruptors. 2014, Narendra Modi storms in. 2017, Trump shakes the system. Politics wasn't polished anymore. It was punchy. It was personal. Across continents, voters chose bold over balanced. Modi, Trump, direct. Bolsonaro, Erdogan saw a rise of nationalism, digital propaganda, leader branding. From Macron's climate pledges to Netanyahu's Middle East flashpoints, the world's political architecture was slowly being redrawn. In fact, a new leadership style was born. Hard on headlines, heavy on impact. The world in crisis mode. From bailouts to border wars, protests to pandemics, every year since 2009 has pushed the world closer to a reset. Financial collapse, rising strongmen, a virus that froze the planet, and wars that reshaped alliances. The disruptors were tested. Impact behind the handshakes. While each move was decoded, global decisions were made in several corners of the world map. Each visit became more than optics. It was market moving, policy making, spotlight shifting. And through it all, India became the constant, transforming summits into stagecraft, handshakes into headlines, and India into a voice that negotiates, not just participates. Leadership is no longer just about governance. Who defines tomorrow? Leadership is now about narrative control, digital diplomacy, and supply chain politics. Trump is back, louder, and maybe strategic. Modi's term 3, less campaign, more calculus. As India shifts from voice to negotiator. She consolidates power into silence, but every move is strategic. BRICS Plus pushes de-dollarization, redrawing financial lines. And the EU, fragmented in voice, but united by green ambitions. This isn't just a new political season, it's the next test of global power. In fact, told through narrative, tech and control. It's about grasping the globe's next fault lines: trade, climate, democracy. 16 years, many key leaders, one disrupted world map. What comes next? Well, only time will tell. Nivedna Prabhu for ET Now.
So a lot has changed in last 16 years, and together we'll see what happens in the next 16. But it's time to take a quick break. Don't go away. Are in a shade of green, so kind of a indecisiveness which is coming in from Asia Pacific markets. Even the gift nifty is barely in red territory as we speak, just down 9 to 10 points. So mixed cues coming in from Asia and markets in indecisive mode. Where to open?
That's right. That's how the markets are looking right now. But now let's talk about ET Now's journey over the past 16 years. It's been just like India's market journey. It's been nothing short of spectacular. Now, the Nifty has zoomed 478% from June 2009 to 2025. Financials now dominate the index with 34% weight, up from just 11 to 12% back then. Now, IT, it has doubled its share, while oil and gas, they've lost steam. Sharad gets us a look at how the past 2 decades have gone by for the market.
Well, the journey has been very strong with ET now turning 16. Now, of course, the Nifty return over the last 16 years, that is 478%. Now, let's look at how the composition of Nifty has changed from 2009 and current levels. You see 11 to 12% was the weightage for financials. That has almost tripled to 34%. Oil and gas, the weightage has come down. For IT, also the weightage has actually gone up. And interestingly, for auto and consumption, it still remains the same. So this is how the Nifty is evolving. Also interestingly, if you look at the overall stocks in the Nifty which have actually survived these 16 years, these are the big names which we talk about daily. HDFC Bank, ICICI Bank, Infosys, HCL Tech. From FMCG space, we have HUL, and also the auto names, Maruti Suzuki, M&M, and even Hero Moto making it to the list. So these are the important companies which have actually stood the test of the time, and they have been in the Nifty index. Now, let's look at the Hall of Fame. What are the returns have been there sector-wise? What overall segments have done well? Auto, 1000% more. Same thing goes for IT and even mid-cap. Interestingly, FMCG Pharma also giving multifold returns towards north of almost 700% plus, while Nifty Bank, that number is also coming in at 69%. Nifty Small Cap, Nifty 50 Index we spoke about, that is also ranging between 400 to 600 odd percent. But towards the lower side, but still at the positive, is the Nifty Energy, the Metal, the PSU Bank and the Realty Pack as well. Also, let's look at the stocks, which are the top multi-baggers in this 16-year journey of the markets. Bajaj Finance, number 1, 618 times. Ajanta Pharma, 365 times. Astral, Uno Minda, these stocks have given multifold returns to the investors. Coming to the list, we are also having Eicher Motors and interestingly SRF, Navin Fluorine from the chemical space also make it to the list. Smaller names, Aegis Logistics comes up with 128 times growth, followed by TVS Motor, Minda Corp, and interestingly Trent has picked up, and of course the recent rally of course we've seen last 3 to 4 years also contributed to Trent's growth as well. And small names, Chola International, LT Foods also make it to the list. And lastly, Deepak Nitrite also makes it to the Hall of Fame. The rise of retail investors, that has been the strength of India and also growing with ET now. Now the demat account that was only 1.7 crore in 2009. 16 years forward, it's 20 crore. And that is the power of the retail. The mutual fund equity AUM, that itself has actually gone up significantly higher. And of course, we have taken the equity segment. 1.42 lakh crore was there in 2009. And now the schemes, the mutual fund houses, all have participated. And you see the number coming in at 32 lakh crore rupees. So the journey has been very strong for the last 16 years. And the journey is expected to remain more strong for the next 16 years.
Thanks, Sharad, for all those details. With this, it's time to take a quick break, but don't go away. More news and updates will follow on the other side. In the revised circular, the proposal is that only 1 to 1.25% provisioning requirement will be there for lenders compared to draft circular which had proposed around 5% provisioning. Mind it, this is only for construction phase and also there has been direction which has been given regarding the consortium of lenders where if the aggregate exposure is 1,500 crore, each lender needs to have 10% exposure.
That's right. Now moving on, let's also talk about the MOCA review meeting that happened yesterday. Now the Union Minister Ram Mohan Naidu chaired the MOCA review meeting on safety, passengers facilitation and airline performance yesterday. Now Air India CMD met with the minister with discussions focused on maintaining operational continuity, supporting transparent communication and passengers' safety and convenience.
All right, moving on, India is planning to send abroad the severely damaged black box from Air India Boeing 787 crash for detailed analysis. As per sources, reports claim that due to extensive fire damage after the plane crash, data extraction in the has proven unfeasible. Senior officials and ministers were briefed extensively on the latest findings and the ongoing station of the investigation into Air India Ahmedabad crash. The committee shared a detailed presentation emphasizing their commitment to concluding the investigation within the next 90 days. It was revealed that while the black box is set to undergo analysis abroad, the committee is working in close coordination with international experts to ensure thorough and unbiased examination of the flight data. Times Network's Sabhay Sachi joins with more details on this story. All right, we'll connect with Sabhay Sachi later, moving on, following the fatal air crash on June 12 in Ahmedabad, Air India has reduced its flights on 16 international routes and has suspended over 3 overseas destinations, and this happened between 21 and June 21 and as we speak till date. Nivedna joins with more details.
In a significant development, Air India has announced a temporary reduction of its services operated by Boeing 787 and 777 aircraft across its international network, citing a dual imperative: the need to undertake enhanced pre-flight safety checks and manage airspace disruptions over the Middle East, which are adding significant time and complexity to long-haul operations. In fact, the airline in a statement said, and I'm quoting it, the objective is to restore schedule stability and minimize last-minute inconvenience to passengers. Moreover, the reductions will be in effect from 21st of June 2025 until at least 15th of July and affect key routes across North America, Europe, Australia and the Far East, along with a few route suspensions entirely. But let's quickly tell you the key route changes at a glance. Delhi-Toronto is slashed from 13 flights a week to 7 a week, nearly a 50% cut on a major transatlantic route. You're also looking at in Europe, Delhi-Milan has been reduced from 7 to 4 flights a week. In Australia, which is the Delhi to Sydney route, we're looking at a drop from 7 to 5 flights per week. Affected passengers were given to understand have been offered a reaccommodation on alternative flights, complimentary rescheduling or full refunds as per the preference in that statement released by the airline.
All right. Those are all the routes that have been impacted after the Air India plane crash. But on that note, we'll take a very short break and be right back with more news and updates on the other side.
Congratulations, Itina, for 16 years journey. You are rendering great service to the nation. I thank all your viewers.
The stakes are high and the answers are elusive. There's one voice unafraid to challenge the status quo.
At 8 p.m.
Money is flowing with insights on small caps, macros and the big structural shift in India's investing landscape. This is your ultimate destination for wealth creation wisdom. Stay tuned as the voices that move markets speak only on ET Now.
Viewers, you need to stay glued to the television sets today because a special programming is coming up. Also now, Srishti is ready with the stocks to watch every day. She brings out stocks which are buzzing in trade. Srishti, what has found in your list today?
Well, a lot of stocks in focus today. Firstly, let's talk about Nestle India. This counter will be in focus as the company did say that they will be holding a board meet on 26th of June to consider bonus issue. So that's why this counter will be in focus. Other than that, let's also talk about United Spirits. This counter has come out with an announcement that Diageo India, that is United Spirits, has announced taking a majority controlling stake in NAO Now Spirits at an enterprise valuation of 130 crores. And after this acquisition, this company will become a completely and wholly owned subsidiary of United Spirits. The third stock that will be in focus will be Biocon, because we know that Biocon did come out with a big QIP, wherein QIP was closed with an issue price of 330 rupees a piece. And the key to note that this issue price was actually lower than what the floor price was decided at 340 rupees, and floor price then was any which was lower than the current market price. So issue price of 330 rupees and QIP is being closed is the news that we are getting from Biocon. And Natco Pharma, that's another counter that will be in focus on the back of a negative news, because US FDA did conduct an inspection in their Hyderabad facility between 9th and 19th of June, and in that Natco Pharma has been given 7 observations along with Form 483. So on the back of this particular news, this counter will be in focus. And yeah, these are the stocks that will be in focus in today's trading session. Back to you.
Right, thank you, Srishti, for taking us through all the stocks that are likely to be in focus today. But now moving on, now about 2 decades ago, flying was a luxury, and now it's a way of life for India's growing middle class. From just 45 million air travelers in 2009 to over 375 million in 2024. The skies are busier than ever. But it's not just about more planes. India had to build runways to match the demand. Now, Nivedana explains us how the country's aviation boom is grounded in infrastructure and how it's taking India to new heights.
16 years ago, flying felt like a luxury, but the democratization of our skies is a story of India on the rise. An 8-fold jump from 45 million flyers in financial year 2009 to more than 375 million in financial year 2024. The flying class is now the middle class, and they're flying frequently. But a sharp rise in passengers needed more than aircraft. It needed runways. And that's where India doubled down. New airports have taken flight to places like Darbhanga, Kalaburgi, Holongi and Shivamogga, connecting smaller towns to metros. In 2016, Udan scheme was launched, an acronym for Ude Desh Ka Aam Nagrik. Its goal, make flying affordable. Today, smaller towns like Hubballi, Kurnool and Jharsuguda are on the air map, linked by sub-hour flights that were unthinkable a decade ago. While India's skies expanded, the fierce competition also led to eventual consolidation. In just a few years, legacy names like Jet Airways and Go First folded, but new challengers entered with aggressive playbooks. The story is yet to be written. Indigo and Air India now command more than 90% of the share. But India's aviation ambitions aren't stopping at regional flights. The next phase is global, with both Air India and Indigo, two giants with very different DNAs, placing record-shattering fleet orders. The Indian aviation industry has seen many ups and downs since 2009. Its story corresponds with India's economic mobility. There was a time when Jet Airways soared as the full-service favorite. Kingfisher dazzled with glamour and style. Air India, with its Maharaja legacy, still held sway over the nation's imagination. And Indigo, just a young budget airline in the wings, barely flying 14% of India's passengers. But aviation, like ambition, doesn't stay still. As death soared, some giants fell, others merged, new players rose, and Indigo just kept climbing. It built a flee faster than anyone imagined, dominated metro routes, bet very big on regional connectivity. Now, the Indian sky hasn't just changed, it has been redrawn. Indigo now carries the lion's share of domestic flyers, not just leading, but flying in a different orbit. Even after its mergers, the Tata-backed Air India group doesn't cross 30%, and the rest, they're holding on to single digits. From bankrupt legacies to billion-dollar turnarounds, from runaway clutter to one airline rewriting the rulebook, 16 years have changed the face of Indian aviation, and millions more are ready to join the journey.
All right, moving on to some more stories. NASA has again postponed the launch of Axiom 4 mission to ISS, which includes Indian astronaut Shubhanshu Shukla as part of 4-member crew. The launch, which was planned for Sunday, has now been delayed and a new date will be announced later. And in a major relief, US President Donald Trump has extended the deadline for TikTok's parent company ByteDance to sell the short-form video app to an American owner by another 90 days.
Prime Minister Modi is set to visit Bihar today ahead of the upcoming assembly polls. He will launch a series of key development projects and flag off the Gorakhpur-Patlipura Vande Bharat Express and inaugurate 1,800 crore rupees worth of sewage treatment plants under the Namami Gange mission. India and England are set to ignite the new ICC World Test Championship cycle with a high-stakes 5-test showdown. The action will begin today at the Headingley Cricket Ground, and the spotlight will be on Shubman Gill, who leads the test side for the first time following the retirements of senior pros like Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli and Ravichandran Ashwin.
All right, with this, it's time to say goodbye in this edition of Market Cafe. But don't go away. For the whole day on ET Now, you have a special programming, so do watch.